The morning sun glared down on the courthouse steps, bouncing off the marble columns like a spotlight on justice itself. Lawyers rushed in, reporters hovered near the entrance, and somewhere in the crowd, a woman stood, calm, poised, her black coat swaying gently in the breeze. Her name was Evelyn Brooks. To the world, she was just another woman walking up the courthouse stairs. To those who knew her, she was Judge Evelyn Brooks, one of the most respected judges in the entire state. But not everyone saw that dot as she reached for her briefcase. Two uniformed officers stepped forward. Their eyes narrowed, scanning her from head to toe, not with curiosity, but with quiet suspicion. "Ma'am," Officer Blake said, blocking her path, "this area is for court staff only." Evelyn paused. "I'm aware," she replied calmly. "I work here." The officer smirked. "Right, and I'm the Chief Justice." His partner, Officer Harris, shifted uneasily beside him. Something about this didn't feel right, but Blake was already in motion, puffing his chest. Playing to the small crowd that had begun to form. "I'm going to need to see some ID," Blake said, his tone clipped. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "You're detaining me? For walking into my own courthouse?" "Ma'am, don't make this difficult," he barked. "Show your ID." She sighed, setting her briefcase down slowly. "It's inside." "If you'll give me 1 second," but before she could finish, Blake grabbed her by the arm. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. A camera phone clicked. Someone whispered, "Hey, what's he doing?" "Officer," Evelyn said firmly, her voice low but steady, "you're making a mistake." "Oh, I don't think so," Blake sneered. "You people always got an excuse, don't you?" That phrase, "you people," hit harder than the grip on her arm. "Let me go," she said, her tone now like steel. "Right now, or what?" He shot back. The world seemed to slow. The crowd grew larger. A janitor stopped sweeping. A reporter lifted his camera higher. The scene was unfolding, a spectacle of arrogance and ignorance. Right on the courthouse steps, Officer Harris whispered, "Blake, maybe we should just check her name. I said I got this." Blake snapped out. In that moment, Evelyn decided to stop arguing. She straightened her back, looked him dead in the eye, and said softly, "You're arresting the wrong woman, yeah?" Blake said with a laugh. "And who exactly are you?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The courthouse doors opened behind them, and out stepped Captain Reynolds, the head of courthouse security. "What's going on here?" he barked. His gaze landed on Evelyn, and his face drained of color. "Judge Brooks?" The silence that followed was deafening. Blake froze. "J. Judge?" His grip loosened instantly. "Ma'am, I didn't." Evelyn pulled her arm away, her voice cold and measured. "Save it, officer. You've already said enough." Phones were still recording. A reporter whispered, "Oh my God, that's the presiding judge." Harris stepped back, shaking his head. "Blake, what did you just do?" I thought, you didn't think," Evelyn cut him off sharply. "You judged." The captain stepped between them, his tone low and furious. Officer Blake stepped back. "Now?" Evelyn picked up her briefcase, smoothed her coat, and turned toward the stairs. For a moment, she paused, looking back at the crowd still filming, still whispering, her eyes locked on Blake's. "I'll see you in court," she said softly. And with that, she walked through the courthouse doors, her head held high, while the man who just dragged her stood trembling, realizing that his career might have just ended in front of 100 witnesses and a dozen cameras. Behind him, the whispers grew louder. Did that really just happen? She's the judge? Oh, he's done for. Officer Blake stared at his hands, the same hands that had gripped a woman's arm like she was a suspect. Now, they just felt heavy. Heavy with shame. As Judge Evelyn Brooks disappeared inside the courthouse, Blake's radio crackled with a chilling message, "Internal Affairs wants you upstairs, now." The marble hallway of the courthouse felt colder than ever. Every sound, footsteps, papers, murmurs, echoed like judgment itself. Judge Evelyn Brooks walked with quiet grace, her black heels clicking softly against the floor. The same officers who had dragged her now stood by the entrance, heads bowed, Afraid to even breathe in her direction. Inside, whispers followed her like ghosts. Did you see that video? She's the judge. They dragged her right in front of everyone. She heard them all, not the words, but the tone. Shock, pity, outrage. But she had learned long ago that in this world, grace under fire was a weapon more powerful than anger. Judge Brooks. A young clerk named Carla rushed toward her, clutching a folder to her chest. Ma'am, I'm so sorry about what happened outside. It's all right, Carla, Evelyn interrupted softly, offering a faint smile. Let's begin the docket. We have a full day ahead. Her calmness wasn't just professionalism, it was armor. But deep down, her pulse was still racing. Not from fear, but from recognition. She had faced this kind of disrespect her entire career, from colleagues, from defendants, from people who couldn't believe that a black woman could hold the gavel. She straightened her robe and entered the courtroom. The room fell silent, the way it always did when she walked in. But this silence was different. It wasn't reverence this time. It was tension. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and glanced across the courtroom. Her voice, when it came, was steady, like marble carved by years of restraint. Court is now in session. At the back, Officer Blake and Officer Harris stood stiffly beside Captain Reynolds. The captain's jaw was clenched, eyes burning holes through Blake. Everyone could feel it. The story was already out. The video of that morning's arrest was spreading across social media like wildfire. A few seats away, a reporter was typing furiously, his phone buzzing nonstop. During recess, Carla approached the bench hesitantly. Judge Brooks, she whispered, handing over her phone, you might want to see this. On the screen was the video, shaky, zoomed in, showing the moment Officer Blake grabbed her arm. You could hear Evelyn's calm voice saying, "You're making a mistake." You could hear the crowd gasp. And you could see the horror when someone shouted, "She's the judge." The clip already had over 80,000 views. Evelyn stared at it for a long moment. Then she handed the phone back. "Delete it," she said quietly. "I don't need sympathy, Carla. I need accountability." Outside in the hallway, Officer Harris paced nervously. "Blake, you messed up bad," he muttered. Blake was pale. How was I supposed to know who she was? She didn't even have her badge on. That's not the point. Harris snapped. "You saw how you talked to her, like she was nobody. You didn't see her. You just saw color." Blake clenched his fists. "I was doing my job." Harris's tone dropped, heavy with truth. "No, you were doing your habit." The words hit him like a slap dot. At that moment, Captain Reynolds approached, his face stone hard. "Internal Affairs is here," he said flatly. "They want your statements." And Blake looked up, eyes pleading. "Sir, hand over your badge," Reynolds cut in. The hallway fell silent again. Every officer froze. Blake's fingers trembled as he unclipped the badge, the same one he'd once worn with pride. Now it felt like a brand of shame. "Sir, please, it was a misunderstanding." "Then you'll explain it," Reynolds said coldly. On record. Back inside the courtroom, Judge Brooks finished the final case of the morning. As the gavel struck, she stood, gathering her papers slowly. Her face was composed, but her eyes carried storms. She looked at the empty jury seats, and for a fleeting second, her expression cracked. Behind all that strength, there was pain. Pain that came from a lifetime of being seen as less than what she was. Carla entered quietly. "Judge, the department's PR office just called. They'd like to release a statement, an apology." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "They can make their statement," she said, placing her files down. "But I'll make mine. In court." Outside, Blake stood near the wall, eyes on the floor. When Evelyn passed by, he mumbled, "Ma'am, She didn't even slow down. "Save your words," she said softly. "The law will hear them soon enough." The hallway fell still as she walked past, her heels striking like a countdown. Two reporters rushed forward, microphones raised. "Judge Brooks." One shouted, "Do you plan to file a complaint against the officers?" She paused at the doorway, looked into the flashing cameras and said, I don't plan to file a complaint. I plan to uphold the law the same way I always have, without fear or favor." Then she turned and disappeared into her chambers, leaving the world buzzing behind her. The video was viral. The headlines were writing themselves, and the storm that started on the courthouse steps had just reached the halls of power. As Evelyn closed the door behind her, her phone vibrated on the desk. A message flashed from an unknown number. "Careful, Judge, you're making enemies in high places." By the next morning, the courthouse steps were flooded, not with officers, but with cameras. Every reporter, every blogger, every voice on the internet wanted a piece of Judge Evelyn Brooks' story. Viral video of black judges. Arrest sparks outrage nationwide. Police department under fire for racial profiling outside courthouse. Hashtag justice for Judge Brooks. Trending in all 50 states. The headlines blazed across every screen. But inside the courthouse, Evelyn sat quietly in her chambers, her coffee untouched, her face calm, her eyes unreadable. Across from her sat District Attorney Mitchell, a sharp-suited man with slicked-back hair and an expression that tried too hard to look neutral. "Evelyn," he began carefully, "you know how these things work. The department's in crisis mode. The mayor's already called twice. They're talking about suspensions, public apologies, press conferences. I'm not interested in optics," she said softly. "I'm interested in consequences." Mitchell sighed. "You're not helping your image by staying silent." "I'm not building an image," she replied. "I'm building a standard." Outside her window, protesters were beginning to gather. Some held signs that read "Dignity isn't a crime" and "Equality before the law." Others shouted at passing police cruisers. Tension was growing, and Evelyn could feel it, like pressure in her chest. Just then, Carla knocked and entered, holding a tablet. "Judge, there's something you need to see." Evelyn turned. The screen showed a televised interview, Officer Blake, his face stiff, sitting beside his attorney. "It was a misunderstanding," Blake said. "We were responding to a security alert. The woman didn't identify herself as a judge. I had no idea who she was." The interviewer leaned forward. "So you're saying you would have acted differently if you knew her status?" Blake hesitated. "I'm saying I was doing my duty." Evelyn's lips tightened. "Duty," she whispered. "The oldest excuse in the book." Carla frowned. "He's already getting hate online. His department's drowning in PR damage." "I'm not his judge," Evelyn said quietly. "The law will decide what's due." At that same moment, in the police precinct downtown, Captain Reynolds sat across from Chief Daniels, a broad, tired-looking man whose face carried both anger and fear. "Chief," Reynolds said, "my men made a mistake. I've already suspended Blake pending review." Daniels slammed his fist on the desk. "A mistake? The city's on fire. Do you realize who she is? A federal nominee. You didn't just insult a judge, you embarrassed the whole department." Reynolds tried to respond, but the chief cut him off. "Internal Affairs wants a full report by noon. And Captain, get ready for hearings. This isn't going away." Back at the courthouse, Evelyn stepped into the courtroom for her next session. But as soon as she appeared, the gallery filled with murmurs and flashing cameras. Every move she made was being recorded, dissected, judged. Still, she carried herself with poise. Her gavel came down with quiet authority. Order in the court. The first case began, but her mind was elsewhere. In between testimonies and motions, she could feel eyes, hundreds of them, watching her not as a judge, but as a symbol. By afternoon, the courthouse lawn looked like a battlefield of opinions. Protesters shouted, officers watched nervously, reporters narrated live. And in the chaos, one sign stood out above the rest. "If a judge can be dragged, what about U.S.?" As Evelyn left the courthouse, cameras swarmed. Microphones in her face. Reporters shouting over one another. "Judge Brooks. Has the department apologized yet? Do you believe race played a factor? Are you stepping down from your upcoming nomination?" She stopped, her voice firm but calm. "I will not answer questions of speculation. I serve the law, and the law will speak for itself. Her words carried through the crowd like a bell, strong, deliberate, unshaken. But as her car door closed and the tinted windows went up, her hands trembled for the first time. She wasn't afraid. She was furious. Carla sat beside her, worried. Judge, you don't have to face this alone. Evelyn looked out the window, at the protest signs, the flashing cameras, the angry faces. No, she said softly. But I do have to face it standing. That night, in her home office, she scrolled through messages. Threats, praise, sympathy, politics. And then one caught her eye. An email from an anonymous address. You're becoming a problem, Judge Brooks. Some people in high offices don't like problems. She stared at the screen, unflinching. Then she whispered to herself, then they'll learn what justice feels like when it's not afraid. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, and the camera of a parked van zoomed in on her window. A dark car idled across the street. Inside, a man in a suit spoke into his phone. Yes, sir. She's not backing down. Do you want me to proceed? The voice on the other end replied, calm and cold. Watch her. Then wait for my signal. Night draped over the city like a warning. Judge Evelyn Brooks sat alone in her study, the glow from her laptop washing over her tired face. The hum of the ceiling fan filled the silence, a silence that felt too heavy, too deliberate. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Judge Brooks? The voice was low, rough, distorted by a cheap scrambler. You need to stop talking. For your own good. She didn't flinch. Who is this? Someone who knows the system doesn't like loose ends. Stay quiet about the arrest. Forget the hearing. Or you'll regret it. The line went dead. For a moment, Evelyn just stared at the phone. Her reflection in the black screen looked calm, but her heartbeat told another story. Then she took a slow breath and pressed record. Her voice steady. Threat received. Time 10:42 p.m. Origin unknown. The next morning, she arrived at the courthouse early. The halls were quieter than usual. Whispers had given way to watchful silence. Even the guards at the entrance avoided her eyes. Carla caught up to her at the door, clutching a folder. Judge, the chief of police called. He wants to meet privately. He said it's urgent. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Let him wait until my docket's clear. But Judge, I said, after court, Carla. When she entered the courtroom, the air tightened again. Every bench filled, every camera pointed forward. But Evelyn didn't look at the lenses. She looked at the law book stacked on her desk, the tool she had always trusted, now suddenly feeling fragile. The first case began. She ruled as fairly and calmly as ever, but her eyes kept flicking toward the door, the faint shadow that lingered behind the glass. Someone was watching. At the same time, Officer Harris sat in an empty diner across town. He hadn't slept all night. His phone buzzed with messages from reporters, colleagues, even strangers calling him a hero for speaking up against Blake. But one message chilled him. You're next if you testify. He swallowed hard and dialed Evelyn's office number. But it went to voicemail. Judge Brooks, he said shakily, I think someone's following me. If anything happens to me, the doorbell jingled. Two men in suits entered the diner, scanning the room. Harris's words caught in his throat. He hung up immediately and slipped out the back. Later that afternoon, Evelyn met Chief Daniels in her chambers. He closed the door, his tone hushed. Judge, I shouldn't even be here. But you need to know, this isn't just about a racist cop anymore. You're stepping on people's political nerves. State senators, donors, even the mayor's office. They want this story buried. Evelyn's voice was calm, but her words sharp. So justice now has a price tag? Don't be naive, he said, lowering his voice. We all answer to someone. She leaned forward. Then maybe it's time someone stopped answering. Daniels looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. You're brave, Judge, but brave people get lonely. And sometimes they disappear. When he left, Evelyn stood by the window. Below, protesters still filled the streets, their signs glowing in the fading sunlight. She could hear their chants through the glass. Nitrogen monoxide justice, nitrogen monoxide peace. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video message, shaky, low quality. The screen showed Officer Harris, terrified, whispering into the camera, "Judge Brooks. They found me." The screen cut to static. Evelyn froze. "No," she whispered, heart pounding. Carla rushed in, hearing the sound. "Judge, what happened?" Evelyn didn't answer. She just stared at the flickering screen, her reflection staring back, framed by fear and fury. Then she said quietly, "If they think fear will stop me, they've never met justice face to face." That night, rain poured over the city. A dark SUV parked near Evelyn's home, its engine running quietly. Inside, the same man from before spoke into his phone. "She's not backing down." The voice on the other end replied, "Cold and slow, then make her." The car lights blinked twice and drove off into the storm. As lightning flashed across the sky, Evelyn's window shattered, a brick crashing through, wrapped in a note that read, "Final warning, stay silent." She picked it up calmly, eyes fierce with resolve. "I've given warnings too," she whispered, "and mine come with verdicts." The courthouse was packed, cameras, reporters, and murmurs that wouldn't die down. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the tension in the air hadn't. Inside courtroom 3B, Judge Evelyn Brooks walked in, her robe flowing behind her like a banner of defiance. Every seat was filled. On one side sat Officer Blake, pale, jaw clenched, his expensive lawyer whispering in his ear. On the other side, the victim's family, eyes heavy with grief but burning with quiet strength. And in the middle, Evelyn, the one woman who refused to look away. Bailiff. All rise. The Court of the State of New York is now in session, the Honorable Judge Evelyn Brooks presiding. The gavel struck once, sharp, commanding. Evelyn scanned the room. "We're here for a preliminary hearing on the case of Officer Daniel Blake, charged with assault and misconduct under color of law. Prosecution, are you ready?" The district attorney, a young black woman named Marissa Cole, nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." The defense stood too quickly. "Your Honor, before we begin, my client's record speaks for itself. 15 years of honorable service, numerous commendations." Evelyn cut him off. "This hearing is about what he did, not what medals he wore." The defense stiffened. The crowd murmured. Cameras clicked. Marissa stepped forward, voice clear, calm, but heavy with fire. "Your Honor, on the night in question, Officer Blake used unnecessary force against an unarmed black driver. He claimed the man reached for a weapon, but body cam footage will show that was a lie." Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. "Proceed." The lights dimmed. On the screen behind them, grainy footage flickered, Blake shouting, the man begging, the camera jerking as the gunshot echoed. A gasp filled the courtroom. Then came the voice everyone recognized, Blake's partner, Officer Harris, shouting, "Stop! He's not armed! What are you doing?" The video froze on that frame. The victim's face frozen mid-plea. Blake looked down, jaw trembling. His lawyer leaned in. "Don't react." But Evelyn was watching him, every twitch, every blink. Marissa spoke again. "Your Honor, my witness, Officer Harris, was prepared to testify, but he's now missing. Last contact was a voicemail left for this court at 9:47 p.m. last night." The defense jumped up. "Objection! Hearsay!" Evelyn's tone was ice. "Overruled. Proceed." Marissa continued, "We have the recording." She pressed play. "Judge Brooks. They found me. If anything happens to me..." Static silence filled the room. Evelyn felt the weight of every eye on her, but she didn't flinch. "Continue, Miss Cole." Marissa nodded, voice shaking slightly. "We believe Officer Harris was silenced to prevent his testimony. This case is bigger than one man's guilt. It's about a system that protects him." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Evelyn banged the gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" But her voice couldn't silence the storm now. Blake suddenly stood up, shouting, "You don't know what you're dealing with, Judge. They'll come for you too." Gasps. Cameras flashed. His lawyer grabbed his arm, whispering furiously, "Sit down, Daniel." Evelyn's eyes locked on him. Is that a threat, officer? He hesitated, then looked away. No, ma'am. Just a warning. Outside, protesters chanted louder. Inside, Evelyn's phone, placed quietly on the bench, buzzed again. A text flashed across the screen. Told you to stay silent. Last chance. Evelyn picked it up, looked straight into the crowd, and spoke with steady fire. This court will never bow to fear. Truth is not up for negotiation. She raised the gavel high. Officer Daniel Blake, based on the evidence presented, I find probable cause for full indictment. You will stand trial. The gavel struck. The sound echoed like thunder. Blake's face went pale. Marissa exhaled in relief. The victim's mother began to cry softly, whispering, "Thank you, Lord." But as the guards led Blake out, he turned, whispering under his breath, "You just signed your own sentence." Judge. That night, Evelyn left the courthouse under heavy rain, escorted by 2 marshals. But as her car pulled away, a black SUV followed, headlights off. Keeping its distance, inside the car, a voice murmured over the radio. Phase 2 begins. Evelyn arrived home, dripping wet, exhausted, only to find her front door slightly open. She reached for her phone, hand trembling. Inside, her study lights were on. On the desk, a single envelope. She opened it. Inside was a photo of Officer Harris, lying motionless near a riverbank. And beneath it, a note in red ink. Next, it's you. Evelyn's eyes hardened. She whispered to herself, then I'll stop hiding. They wanted war, now they'll get one. The rain fell harder that night, sheets of water crashing against Evelyn's windows. She sat in her dimly lit study, staring at the photo that someone had left on her desk hours earlier. Officer Harris. Lifeless, pale, his badge still on his chest. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the note again. Next. It's you. She took a deep breath, whispering to herself, if they think they can scare me, they picked the wrong woman. But even as she said it, her pulse raced. Every shadow in the room felt alive. Every creak of the old wooden floor sounded like footsteps. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck midnight. 12 deep chimes. Outside, thunder rolled. Evelyn stood, locking the front door, checking the windows. Her security system blinked green, all clear. She tried to calm herself, walking to the kitchen for a glass of water. Then, a faint sound. A soft click. From the back door. She froze. The glass in her hand trembled, water spilling over her fingers. That wasn't thunder. That was a lock disengaging. Slowly, she turned off the lights. The house plunged into darkness. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it echoing in her ears. In the silence, she could hear it clearly now. Footsteps. Soft. Careful. 2 people. Maybe 3. Evelyn reached under the counter, pulling out the small revolver her father had given her years ago. Just in case life ever corners you, he'd said. She moved quietly toward the hallway mirror and angled it, catching a glimpse of her living room. 2 shadows stood there, tall, armed, scanning. Intruder 1, check upstairs. Make it quick. Intruder 2, copy that. Evelyn backed away slowly, her mind racing. They weren't burglars. They were professionals. She reached for her phone, dialing 911, but the line went dead. No signal. They'd cut it. Her stomach sank. She knew what this was, retaliation. Someone didn't want the trial to happen. Evelyn took a silent step backward, and her foot brushed against a loose floorboard. Cries. One of the men turned instantly. Who's there? Flashlight beam swept across the hallway, landing inches from her face. She dove behind the couch just as a shot shattered the vase beside her. Glass exploded across the floor. Intruder 1. She's armed. Take her out. Evelyn crawled toward the staircase, ducking low, every movement timed with the thunder outside. The revolver felt heavy, 5 bullets, and no room for mistakes. She reached the 2nd floor, kicking open the door to her bedroom, and ducked behind the dresser. In the corner of her eye, she saw the family photo, her late father in uniform, standing beside her mother, I won't let them destroy what you stood for, she whispered. The door downstairs burst open. Heavy boots thundered up the steps. Intruder 2, over radio. Target confirmed. Moving in. Evelyn aimed toward the door, breathing shallow. Her finger hovered over the trigger. Suddenly, headlights flashed outside, blue and red. A siren wailed, faint but growing louder. The intruders hesitated. Intruder 1. Cops? Who called? Before he could finish, Evelyn fired. Bang! The bullet hit the wall beside him, sending plaster flying. He cursed, firing back, but the sound of the sirens now filled the street. Intruder 2. We're blown. Fall back. The men bolted down the stairs. Evelyn followed cautiously, gun still raised, but by the time she reached the door, they were gone. All that remained was shattered glass, muddy boot prints, and a faint metallic object glinting on the carpet. She picked it up. It was a police-issue shell casing, one that shouldn't have been there. Her breath caught. No, this wasn't a hit. It was a message. The front door burst open. Detective Marcus Reed, one of the few officers she trusted, rushed in. Marcus. Judge Brooks. Are you all right? Evelyn. I'm fine. But someone tried to finish what they started. Marcus. We'll get them. I swear. She handed him the casing. His eyes widened. This is department issue. Whoever did this was one of yours, she finished grimly. Outside, the rain began to slow. The flashing lights reflected off the puddles like fire in water. Evelyn stood on her porch, robe soaked, hair clinging to her face. They came for me tonight, she said softly. But next time, I'll be ready. Marcus nodded. Determination in his eyes. Then we go to war, with the badge. If we have to. Evelyn looked back at her broken house, then toward the courthouse glowing in the distance. No, she said, voice steady. We go to war with the truth. As the police cars pulled away, Evelyn's eyes caught something strange. A red laser dot slowly sliding across her window frame. She froze. Then, click, the dot vanished. A sniper scope. A warning, she whispered to herself. They're still watching. The camera of fate pulled back, showing her lone figure in the rain, defiant against the darkness. The night after the attack felt endless. Every noise, every car horn, every gust of wind kept Evelyn's nerves on edge. But she didn't break. She couldn't. Now it wasn't just about her. It was about what they were hiding. Morning came gray and heavy, rain still clinging to the courthouse steps like a memory that wouldn't wash away. Judge Evelyn Brooks walked past reporters without a word, head high, robe pressed, eyes sharper than ever. Behind her walked Detective Marcus Reed, face tight, phone in hand. Marcus. I ran the shell casing. Serial numbers scratched, but the chemical trace matches ammo used by the precinct armory. Evelyn. Meaning someone on the inside checked it out off the books. Marcus. Exactly. Someone who knew the system well enough to hide their trail. Evelyn's gaze hardened. Then let's start where corruption always hides, behind protocol. Inside her chambers, the atmosphere was tense. Carla, her loyal clerk, whispered as she handed over files. Carla. Judge. There's talk that the officers from that morning, Blake and Harris, they're being reassigned. Quietly. No hearings. No paperwork. Evelyn. Reassigned? That's not accountability. That's camouflage. Evelyn's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Voice, distorted. Judge Brooks, you're walking into a storm. Back off the case and you'll live to see another verdict. Evelyn, and if I don't? Voice. Then you'll end up like Harris. The line went dead. A chill rippled through her. Marcus saw her expression. Marcus. What happened? Evelyn, someone's warning me. Which means we're close. That evening, Marcus met Evelyn in a quiet diner outside town, one of those small, flickering neon places where the coffee's bad but the secrets are safe. He opened his laptop, showing encrypted files. Marcus. I hacked into the precinct's transfer logs. Someone's been deleting arrest footage, evidence files, and get this. They used the captain's access code. Evelyn. Reynolds? Marcus. It looks like him. But something's off. The timestamps are all from after hours, when Reynolds wasn't even in the building. Evelyn frowned. So someone's using his credentials. But who has that kind of clearance? Marcus paused, jaw tight. There's one person. The tech supervisor, Sergeant Cole Mitchell. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Mitchell, wasn't he your partner years ago? Marcus nodded, guilt shadowing his face. He saved my life once. But lately, he's been different. Too defensive whenever I bring up the Brooks incident. Evelyn leaned forward. Then it's time we paid Sergeant Mitchell a visit. Later that night, Marcus parked outside the precinct. The building loomed silent, its windows glowing faint yellow under the drizzle. They entered through the back, using Marcus's credentials. The tech room was a maze of monitors and humming servers. A coffee cup still steamed on the desk. Mitchell's, Marcus, whispering. He's here, Evelyn. Then let's not waste time. They crept forward. And then a voice cut through the darkness. Mitchell, coldly. You shouldn't have come here. Marcus. He stepped out of the shadows, gun drawn. Evelyn froze, but her eyes didn't waver. Marcus. Cole. Tell me it's not you. Mitchell. It's not about you, Marcus. It's about survival. You think this system cares about truth? It eats the truth alive. I'm just smart enough to stay fed. Evelyn's voice was steady, every word deliberate. And what about Harris? Was that survival too? Mitchell's jaw tightened. He was going to leak the video. I couldn't let that happen. You were supposed to resign quietly, Judge. You weren't supposed to fight. Evelyn, then you don't understand what justice means, Mitchell sneered. Justice? Justice is whatever the ones in power say it is. He cocked the gun, but before he could pull the trigger, Marcus lunged, knocking his arm aside. The gun went off. Glass shattered, alarms blared. Evelyn ducked, pulling the emergency fire alarm to summon help. Mitchell tried to flee, but Marcus tackled him, fists flying, years of betrayal unleashed in every punch. When it was over, Mitchell was handcuffed, bloodied, face pale under the red alarm lights. Marcus, breathing hard. You're done. Cole, Mitchell, you think locking me up fixes this? I'm a drop in the ocean. You can't fight what's coming. Evelyn looked at him coldly. Then I'll drain the ocean, one drop at a time. By dawn, the news was everywhere. Police technician arrested for tampering with evidence in viral courthouse case. But Evelyn knew this wasn't over. Mitchell wasn't the mastermind, he was a tool. She sat in her office, watching the sunrise. The light hit her face, soft but unyielding. Evelyn, quietly. If there's an inside man, there's also someone higher pulling the strings. Her phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. Text. You think you found the mole? You've only scratched the surface. The attachment opened automatically, showing a photo of her inside the courthouse, taken that morning. Her blood ran cold. Someone was still watching. Someone close. Evelyn stared at the photo, realization sinking in. If the picture was taken today, from inside chambers, then the traitor wasn't just in the department. They were inside her own courthouse. The morning sunlight filtered through the courthouse windows, soft and golden, but to Judge Evelyn Brooks, it felt like a spotlight. Every creak of the hallway, every whisper of paper now carried suspicion. Someone inside her court, someone she trusted, was feeding her moves to the people trying to silence her. She sat alone in her chambers. The photo from the anonymous message still open on her phone. It was taken from inside, behind her desk, from an angle only her team could access. Her stomach tightened. Evelyn, Carla, Marcus, the bailiffs, the clerks. One of you is playing both sides. Marcus entered, his usual confident step slowed. He set a stack of files on her desk. Marcus. Forensics confirmed the photo was taken with a department-issued phone. Whoever did this, they have clearance. Evelyn, then that narrows it down to 5 people. And 2 of them work for me. Her eyes lingered on the office door. Carla's been with me for years. She wouldn't, but her words trailed off as she noticed something strange. Her desk drawer, the one she always locked, was slightly open. She opened it fully. Inside lay a tiny recording device, red light blinking faintly. Marcus leaned in. Jaw tightening. Marcus, they're bugging your office now. Evelyn, not they, someone here. Moments later, Evelyn called for her staff. Carla, the young bailiff, and the assistant clerk all entered, faces curious but nervous. Evelyn's tone was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Evelyn, there's been a breach. Someone here has been recording private conversations from my chambers. Carla, shocked. What? That's impossible, Evelyn. Then explain this. She placed the recorder on the table. Its red light blinked again, mocking them. The room fell into thick silence. Bailiff. Ma'am. I swear I didn't, Evelyn. No one is accusing anyone. Yet. But I'll find out who did. Carla stepped closer, voice trembling. Carla. Judge. You know me. I'd never. Evelyn nodded but didn't speak. Her trust was shaken, and even kindness couldn't fix it now. Later that afternoon, Marcus returned with a flash drive. Marcus. Got access to the internal camera feeds. I think I found something. He inserted it into her computer. The footage showed a grainy clip from 3 nights ago. Someone entered Evelyn's chambers after hours, face hidden under a cap. Marcus zoomed in. The figure opened her desk drawer, placed the recorder, and left. The frame froze just before the door shut, revealing a faint reflection in the glass. Evelyn leaned closer. Her heart sank. Evelyn, whispering, no. It was Carla's necklace. A thin silver chain with a cross pendant, the same one she wore every day. Marcus exhaled slowly. Marcus, you sure? Evelyn, I'd recognize that chain anywhere. She sat back numb. Carla, her most loyal clerk, the one who stood by her when the media swarmed. When the officers dragged her, had betrayed her. That evening, Evelyn called Carla into her chambers, keeping her tone neutral. Evelyn. Carla. Close the door. Carla hesitated, then obeyed. Evelyn. I've reviewed the security footage. Carla's hands fidgeted. Evelyn. Would you like to tell me why you were in my office after hours? Carla froze. Her lips parted, eyes darting to the recorder on the table. Carla. Judge. I can explain. Evelyn. Then start explaining. Tears welled in Carla's eyes. Carla, they came to my apartment. 2 men. Said they knew where my brother lived. They said if I didn't help, they'd hurt him. Evelyn's anger softened, replaced by something deeper. Pain. Evelyn. So you planted the recorder? Carla. I had no choice. They said they just wanted updates, nothing serious. I didn't think it would go this far. Evelyn stood silently for a long moment. Then she spoke quietly. Evelyn. Carla. When they make you choose between your family and your integrity, that's not a choice. It's coercion. Carla wiped her eyes. Carla. I'll testify. I'll name them. Evelyn. Good. But from now on, you'll need protection. Marcus stepped out of the shadows. He'd been listening from behind the door, ready to intervene. Marcus. We'll keep her safe. But this confirms it, Evelyn. Someone powerful's pulling the strings. They wanted your chambers wired because your rulings threaten them. Evelyn nodded grimly. Evelyn. Then we'll hit back the only way they don't expect, in open court. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The betrayal burned, but so did the clarity. The enemy wasn't just prejudice anymore. It was power protecting itself. As thunder rolled outside, she whispered into the dark. Evelyn, you wanted to silence me? Then you've already failed. Tomorrow I speak. She turned off the lamp, unaware that a car sat across the street, engine idling, camera lens glinting faintly through the rain. The next morning, an anonymous email hit the media inboxes across the city containing sealed court documents, Evelyn's private notes, and her address. The storm was about to explode, not in the courtroom, but in public. The courtroom was silent. Only the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the nervous shuffling of papers broke the stillness. Judge Evelyn stood tall behind the bench, her black robe gleaming under the courtroom lights. Her presence alone demanded respect. But today, her expression was carved from steel. Across from her sat the 2 cops, Officers Marcus and Riley. The same men who had thrown her out of the courthouse steps just a day before. Now, they looked nothing like the arrogant bullies they once were. Their uniforms were wrinkled, faces pale, and eyes heavy with regret. "Officer Marcus," Evelyn began, her tone razor-sharp, "would you like to tell the court why you thought it was appropriate to drag a woman, without reason, from the courthouse property?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Your Honor, we didn't know it was you. We thought—" "You thought?" Evelyn's voice cut like thunder. "You assumed. You saw my skin and built a story in your head. That's not policing. That's prejudice wearing a badge." The crowd gasped. Even the defense attorney lowered his head in shame. Riley tried to speak, his voice trembling. "We made a mistake, Your Honor. We were just following procedure." "Procedure?" Evelyn snapped. "Your procedure was built on bias. You humiliated me not as a judge but as a human being." Her words echoed through the courtroom, bouncing off every wall, every conscience. The reporters scribbled frantically, flashes from cameras lighting up like sparks of justice being ignited. Then, slowly, Evelyn took a step down from the bench. She walked toward the officers, her heels striking the marble floor like the ticking of judgment itself. "When you threw me out," she said softly, "you didn't just disrespect me. You disrespected every woman, every person of color, who has ever had to prove they belong in rooms they've already earned a place in." A tear rolled down Marcus's cheek. Riley wiped his eyes, unable to meet her gaze. Evelyn leaned closer, lowering her tone. "You think justice is about power? It's not. It's about accountability." She turned toward the gallery, addressing the court and the watching media. "Let this be a reminder that racism has no place behind a badge, no seat in a courtroom, and no shelter under the law." The entire courtroom erupted into applause. Cameras flashed like lightning. The officers sat frozen, broken by the weight of their own actions. And Evelyn stood tall, not as a victim, but as a symbol of what happens when truth refuses to stay silent. As she lifted her gavel and brought it down one last time, the echo rang like thunder, the sound of a system finally facing itself. Court adjourned. The gavel slammed. Justice, poetic and powerful, had been served. Outside the courthouse, a mysterious black SUV waits for Judge Evelyn. Inside sits a powerful political figure, someone who watched everything unfold, and has plans of their own. The afternoon sun blazed over the courthouse, casting long shadows across the marble steps where everything had begun. Judge Evelyn stepped outside, her black robe fluttering in the soft autumn breeze. The air was cool now, but the fire inside her heart still burned hot. Reporters swarmed around her, microphones outstretched, voices overlapping. "Judge Evelyn, how does it feel to have justice served? Do you believe those officers will actually face consequences? Will this incident change how the department operates?" She raised a calm hand, silencing the chaos. Her voice was steady, graceful, but filled with quiet power. "Justice isn't about revenge. It's about transformation. Today, I don't just want 2 officers to change. I want a system to wake up." The crowd applauded. For the first time in a long while, Evelyn smiled, not out of victory, but relief. She turned to her clerk, Maya, who followed close behind. "Let's go home," Evelyn said softly. "It's been a long day." But just as she reached the edge of the courthouse steps, a black SUV rolled up slowly. Tinted windows. No plates. No insignia. The kind of vehicle that carried either danger or destiny. A suited man stepped out, tall and composed, his face half hidden behind dark sunglasses. "Judge Evelyn Carter?" he said in a deep, calm voice. Evelyn stopped, her instincts on alert. "Yes?" He handed her a sleek envelope embossed with a golden seal, the Department of Justice insignia. "Ma'am, the Attorney General would like to meet you, tonight." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. The reporters froze, cameras flashing as Evelyn's expression shifted from confusion to quiet resolve. Later that night, Washington, D.C. A private meeting room inside the DOJ headquarters. Soft lights. Mahogany table. 2 cups of untouched coffee steaming between them. Across from Evelyn sat Attorney General Robert Whitmore, one of the most powerful men in the country. He leaned forward, fingers clasped. "Judge Carter," he began slowly, "what happened in that courtroom today? It went viral. Every network, every paper, every citizen is talking about it." Evelyn stayed quiet, listening. Whitmore continued, his voice serious. "You didn't just expose two racist cops, you reminded America what justice is supposed to look like." She blinked. "And why am I here, Mr. Attorney General?" Whitmore smiled faintly. "Because we need people like you, inside the system, not just judging it from the bench. The president saw your hearing today. He's offering you something few ever get." He slid a folder across the table. Evelyn hesitated before opening it. Her eyes widened. Nomination for Supreme Court Justice. For a moment, time stopped. Evelyn felt her pulse quicken, her breath shallow. The same woman who had been dragged across courthouse steps for being just another black woman was now being asked to serve at the highest level of justice in the nation. She whispered, This can't be real." Whitmore smiled. "It's very real. But only if you're ready." She closed the folder slowly, gathering herself. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of history pressing against her soul. "If I accept," she said quietly, "it won't just be for me. It'll be for every girl who was told she didn't belong. For every woman who had to fight twice as hard to be heard once." Whitmore nodded. "Then I'll tell the president you're ready." The next morning Evelyn stood once again at the courthouse steps, this time not in defeat, but triumph. The city buzzed with news. Crowds cheered as she approached the podium. Behind her, a massive banner hung. "Equal justice for all. Begins now." She took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice carried across the plaza, steady and strong. "Yesterday I stood here as a victim of prejudice. Today I stand as a symbol of perseverance. But let's make one thing clear. I am not exceptional. I am the result of every mother, every teacher, every soul who refused to bow down to injustice. Racism doesn't just wear uniforms. It hides in laws, in glances, in silence. And until we call it out, loudly and publicly, it will keep poisoning our future." The crowd erupted. People wept. Reporters stood stunned. Evelyn paused, her eyes glistening. "We can't rewrite the past, but we can judge the present with courage. And that's how we build a future worth living." Thunderous applause followed. As she turned to leave, a familiar face appeared, Officer Marcus, standing at the back of the crowd, no longer in uniform. He walked up to her slowly, holding a folded letter. "Your Honor," he said softly, voice breaking, "I resigned. And I'm joining the Community Justice Program." "Because of you?" Evelyn smiled gently. "Then maybe, Officer Marcus, justice has already begun." She placed a hand on his shoulder, nodded once, and walked toward the waiting car. This time, no one stopped her. No one questioned her right to be there. As the car door closed, sunlight glinted across the windshield, like a new dawn breaking after a long, dark night. Final scene, cinematic ending. Camera pans upward, over the courthouse, over the waving flags, into the sky. The narrator's voice echoes. They tried to throw her out of justice. Instead, she became its highest voice. Fade to black. Dramatic music swells. Text on screen. Inspired by true events. Justice belongs to those who refuse to stay silent. Moral of the story: never let anyone's prejudice decide your place. The world may try to silence you, but when you rise for generations.